What we want to do now, we've talked through kind of the two big sets of pieces first, which is, okay, this moment of choice. And I just want to review real quick. So this moment of choice, we see someone who needs help. And remember, I just want to say this again, I want to hit the highlights, that someone who needs help, they may be asking for help in a way that we don't see them as asking for help. If they are acting out, if their behavior is out of line, they are asking for help in the only way that they know how. We see them now as someone who needs help. We make a choice. And that choice is based on this deepest sense of what's right, this prompting of the Spirit that exists inside of us. And we choose to either be responsive or resistant. If we choose responsiveness, we see people as people. We are able to behave in a certain way that invites them to be responsive, and we have an influence, and good things can happen out of that. And that is this side of peace, being joined together, being complete with the Spirit and with God. On the other side, we have resistance. If we choose resistance, we see people as objects. As we see them as objects, we can go into self-betrayal. We begin to believe lies about ourselves. We are seeing ourselves falsely. That's going to lead us to hurt and pain, which then is going to lead us to the self-justifying model, where we want to do something to address that. And one thing, I don't know if I emphasized it on each one, the more that we do each of these, the less we think we hurt. Okay, and think we hurt is an important thing. The less we think we hurt. So as I see the problems in somebody else, I don't feel as bad about myself. As I blame somebody else, I don't hurt as much. As I become the victim, I begin to feel very justified in the negative feelings and the negative things that I'm doing. My values become distorted. I have an insistence on being right. I'm living a lie, and then I'm going to find other people who will hang out and talk to me about this and tell me that I'm right. And that's sort of this whole cycle right here. As we go through this, and remember, from that moment of choice to the end of this, as we're in this cycle, it can just be a matter of seconds. And the more history we have of doing this, the quicker it's almost an automatic response. It takes something very intentional to break out of this cycle, which we're going to get to that in just a minute. Okay, so we've got all of these things, and then it leads us to this discussion of the boxes. And the way they talk about it, if we are in the box, we are now defined and really confined to a way that we're going to see the world, a way that we're going to see ourselves, others, and how we're going to feel and operate. And once we get there, we're stuck, and we've got to get out. So they identify 4 boxes that we can be in, and this is in your book. Feel free to write some of this down if you want to. The first box that they have is a better than box. Okay, a better than box. So when we're in the better than box, we're going to see ourselves as being superior, we're important, we're virtuous, we're right. Okay, this is where I view myself as I am needed, I am important. And I go here, you can see how we come out of these sets of feelings and behaviors and emotions, and it leads us into this better than box, that if we've gone through these blaming and these victiming, and especially this distortion of values, that's really going to help to propel us into this better than box, because I'm operating like we talked about this morning. I'm in line with God here on this one, so certainly I'm in this better than box. So I'm going to see myself as superior, important, virtuous, right. I'm going to view others as being inferior, incapable, or irrelevant, false, they're wrong, they are not right. I am right, and they are not. The feelings that I'm going to experience here, and this is what can, again, start to help us identify if we're there. When I feel like I'm in the better than box, I'm very impatient. Okay, I'm very impatient. I'm disdainful, very much looking down on other people, and I'm going to be very indifferent towards everybody else. My needs, my wants, my desires are more important than everyone else's, because I am right, I am superior, I need the attention. And then I view the world as being competitive. Hey, it's a competition and I need to win. The world is very troubled. The world has a lot of problems. And then this one is really telling me when I'm in this box. The world needs me. People who go into this box love to have people say, especially if they work in anything sort of therapeutic or ministerial, stuff like this, one of the feeding phrases that you know somebody's in this box is when they love to hear people say, I just don't know how I would have gotten through this without you. Oh, that just feeds this beast. The world needs me. I have something that's just critical. The world's going to stop spinning if I don't get a chance to share whatever it is that I think is on my mind. So this is that better than box. Now, most of us, in one form or another, can identify with all four of the boxes. You remember as you read through the books. Is there anybody who can say that this is the one they go to the most often? I will say this is the one that I go to the most often. Anybody else identify with this one? A few folks who do. Okay. Anybody need me to leave it? Anybody still writing? No? Okay. The next box that we go to is the I deserve box. Okay, so as we look over here at how do we get to the I deserve box, the I deserve box especially drives out of this self-victimization one. I deserve something better and it's not fair are going to be phrases that come up very quickly in this I deserve box. So I view myself here as being meritorious. I've done the right thing and it's not fair. I'm mistreated. I'm a victim. And I am underappreciated or I'm unappreciated. Okay, people don't see. So sometimes as parents we can see with our kids where we look at it, we say, you have no idea how much I've sacrificed for you. Those are the kinds of phrases. Now that might be true. That might be. It usually is as parents. But it comes out in a way that I'm viewing myself and I deserve better than this. Maybe sometimes as parents when our kids are really starting to get into some of the destructive things that they get into, we might find ourselves having that conversation even with God where we say, God, I didn't deserve this. Kind of a Job moment. I didn't deserve this. You explain to me why this happened. And of course, when you guys read Why Christian Kids Rebel, hopefully it helped us to maybe be able to frame some of that question as we're there. We view others as being mistaken. They're mistreating and they're very ungrateful. And most of us have said that to our kids, rightly, at some point. You are so ungrateful. And again, there's probably some truth to that. Mistaken, mistreating, and ungrateful. The feelings that I have, I feel entitled. Entitlement is a big issue that we deal with in our students when they come in. I would say this and the worse than box, which we'll talk about in just a moment, are probably the ones that our students, when they first come to ALA, spend the most time in. They actually don't spend a lot of time in the better than box initially. They move to it as they're kind of working through first phase. And sometimes the must be seen as box. Sometimes the first little week we'll see some of that. You'll hear that fronting a lot kind of relates to that. But entitled, a lot of entitlement. I deserve, I should have, it's my right. Those kinds of things. Deprived. I feel like things have been taken away from me. Okay, you can see again with our students where, my freedom has been taken away from me is a feeling that we hear. And they're right, it has, but it wasn't taken, it was given. And then resentful. I look at what other people have. I look at the Smiths kids, and they don't argue with their parents. And they're always in church, and they're up in the worship band, and you see how we can start to go and say, if I only had a kid like that, Or sometimes we can get resentful where we look at others and we say, I look at what the Smiths, and I don't know if you know any Smiths, but I look at the Smiths and they just don't even appreciate how good they have it with their kids. If I had their kids, I would be teaching them so much and doing so much and blah, blah, blah. And we get resentful of other people. We get resentful of other people. Maybe we work with somebody who makes about the same as what we make. And we know that we work a whole lot harder with them than them. And we start to think, I deserve more. I work twice as hard as them, and I'm always carrying them along. And so you can see that. Again, those things don't ever come up at ALA, but sometimes in the rest of the world, those things will come up from time to time. And so I view the world as being unfair, it's unjust, and it owes me something. Somebody owes me something, and it's not fair. You hear that phrase a lot with the I deserve box. This is not fair. We hear those things often. Anybody need another minute to write those? Good? All right, the next box that we go to is the must be seen as box. Okay, so the must be seen as box here is going to come from a couple of things in this world over here. It's going to come some from the horribilizing, and I'm going to make others look bad so that I can be seen in a different light, and also the distortion of values, and then especially the insistence on being right. Okay, I want to be seen in a certain way. I want people I want to fit into a certain role. So I view myself as my view of myself is that I need to be well thought of. But I also view myself as very fake. Life is a performance. And so I recognize that within myself. Now it's interesting in this one that this is the only one that really identifies within ourselves something negative. Most of the other things, if we were to go back and look at the other boxes, the way I view myself would be something positive. It would be a positive way that I'm seeing myself, even though it's distorted because it's in the box. But this one, I understand that I'm fake, and I'm okay with that because I'm working to keep up an image. I view others then as being threatening. They're judgmental, and they are my audience. So I'm always having to perform for them, And as a judgmental and as a threatening audience, I'm afraid of them. I'm skeptical. What if they see through me? What if they see that, it's the old, the spinning plates thing, right? They get all the plates going and we're running. We're constantly trying to keep all those spinning because if I can actually get them all spinning, the audience will stand up and applaud. Have you ever actually seen one of those live? I got to see one once. It was at a youth conference. There was a guy who was a Christian, juggler and things like that. And so he did all of his juggling tricks and all this sort of stuff. And then he said that one of his favorite things to do, and he had got a chance to see whoever the first person was to do the spinning pie plates on the thing. He said so he wanted to do, and I think it was 50 plates spinning all at once. And so he gets them going, and to see, and he literally is running back and forth, and they're falling and breaking, and he's got to get another one, and he's going and going, and then finally at the end of the show, he lets them all fall and break, and that's and then he has that's kind of his transition into him sharing his testimony. But it's so true. We're constantly going and constantly afraid that if something falls or it doesn't happen, that the audience isn't going to applaud, that they're not going to see my value, because I have to be seen in this certain way. So when you start to think about feelings, I'm anxious all of the time, and I'm afraid, and I'm needy, and I'm stressed, and I feel overwhelmed. I think this is the one probably that we get trapped in as parents a lot, especially in faith communities and churches, and especially if you're in any kind of leadership in that faith community. Boy, man, I learned this well in my family. We were that family that could be, getting completely lectured or arguing or screaming or whatever it is, and the moment that we hit the church parking lot and the doors opened, it was, how is everything? Oh, it's great. It's a beautiful day, and stuff like that. My mom, she was gifted. I'll tell you, my mom, this is her gifting, that she could be yelling at me, which happens sometimes because I made some choices. And she could be going and going, and my mom could give a good lecture. I'll give her credit for that, and it could be long. And she's going and lecturing, and the phone rings. She should drive me crazy. The phone rings. Hello? Oh, great, yeah. Going, and I'm sitting here, and I'm waiting. I know I'm not allowed to leave. Just have her conversation. She hangs up and picks up right where she left off, like it didn't even miss a beat. And I'm like, wow, that is good, right? It is a gift. It is a gifting, right? It's like grace. It's a gift I didn't deserve. But anyways, right? That reality, though, as parents, we do that. Again, especially, I think, in our churches, in our faith communities, it can really kind of draw us into this box. Especially because, remember, the reason that we go into this box is not because we think at the beginning, I have to keep up an image. It's because we made a choice a while back. And so this is really about trying to hide our flaws, and hide the flaws of our family. And, we want to be seen in this certain way. And then, of course, our view of the world is it's dangerous, it's watching, it's judging me, and we make these assumptions. If people saw what was going on, they'd kick me out of the church, or they'd take away, my role, or they wouldn't let me do this or whatever. So this is how we view the world. Now, sometimes in some churches, they actually do that, which only makes it worse. See, instead of seeing them as whoever them is in the church as somebody who needs help, we use it as justification for why we should stay in the box, why we should never leave. And the last one, and again, our students come in a lot of times in this one also, is the worse than box. So in the worse than box, I view myself as not as good. I'm broken, I'm deficient, I'm failed. Okay, now how do we get out of from here to this one? It is a little bit more of a I don't know. We got to go a little bit deeper, because as I'm going through these different self-justifying behaviors and feelings and things like that, sometimes for some people it can actually make it ease up by just accepting that, I'm really just not as good as other people. For maybe our sons or daughters, I really never am going to be as good as my elder brother or sister. I'm just not as talented. I'm not as smart. I'm not as funny. I'm never going to be a good baseball player or football player or basketball player. I'm never going to be as pretty or as thin or fit into that size or whatever it is. And so even though I've gone through these things, and when I'm in this box, because part of the way this works, when we get into the boxes, if we had another whiteboard here, when we get into these boxes, we sometimes will dip back into this to help us justify why we're staying in our box, because we don't like to be in our box. And in a minute, we're going to talk about how we actually work together to stay in boxes with people, that we actually enjoy doing that, sort of. But we dip back into these things. So when I'm coming to this worse than box, and I'm dipping back into these things, it's a different sort of feeling. It's not about just making me look better. It's about me horribilizing other people. Now it's for how they've treated me, because I don't have as much, I'm not as pretty as them, or I'm not as talented as them. And so how horrible for them to pick on me because of that, or to ostracize me because of that. And the blaming emotions are going to sound the same way. The victimization is no longer about me being so right. It's about how wrong they were for the things that they did to me, knowing that I'm less talented, less gifted than they are. And this is where a lot of our kids come in at, is that they just feel worse than everyone else. And sometimes we as parents have helped along with that, because we've compared them to other people. We've kind of helped them to see that in that way. I view others, of course, as being advantaged. They're privileged. They are blessed, where I am not. I feel helpless, jealous, bitter, and depressed. And when we use the word depressed here as a feeling, just for a side note, there's a distinction between a feeling of depression or sadness and something that would be a clinical depression, a biochemical thing going on. Now, sometimes there's correlation between the feeling and the actual condition, but here we're talking about the feeling. I'm just sad all of the time, or a lot of the time. And then my view of the world is hard and difficult. The world is against me, and the world ignores me. I've told teenagers as I've worked with them over the years, that the worst thing you can do to somebody is ignore them. Most people, and sometimes when we have some younger students that come in, over the years we've had some students who were 13, almost 14 or 14, and sometimes they've come into the academy at a time when the age was a little bit older. Maybe the average age was about 16. So sometimes there were some challenges there, and one of the things that we would see sometimes is these younger kids would become very annoying. And sometimes I would have to sit down with some of our leadership students and say, do you realize why that's happening? Because I would rather, as a human being, I would rather have you be mean to me than ignore me. Because at least if you're mean to me, you're acknowledging I'm here. And that's behavior patterns that we get into sometimes. And we do this sometimes too, in our peer groups and in our marriages and with our kids. We get into this worse than box. We start to think, I really am just a horrible, horrible parent, but it's not that I'm sort of having self-reflection. It's, but I was raised in a family, I'm just doing the things that I was taught. I'm just trying to do these things, and I don't know what to do anymore, and that's where that helpless comes in. I don't know what to do. No idea what to do. And there's a difference between being able to admit in the Lord, I don't know what to do, and feeling like I'm just completely helpless. Because we are never helpless if we're in the Lord. Like, we can always turn to the Lord. We can always find that strength. So feeling helpless, and the world's hard, and it's difficult, and things like that. Okay, so those are our 4 boxes. Now again, why is that helpful? Well, I think that's helpful because I believe that it's in those moments when we're in the box and we start to have these things brought to our attention that we can finally kind of realize what's going on. This is all happening so fast the first time we go through it that we may not realize how bad it is and how quickly it's happening, because every time as we're going through it, we're feeling more and more justified and more right, and the hurt, the pain that we were feeling from our self-betrayal is a little bit less, so we think, okay, this must be a good spot. And it's not until maybe we get to this box, and especially our worldview, this view of the world idea, starts to settle in, that we go, wait a second. I'm looking at the world as being hard or difficult or unjust or unfair or needing me or whatever it is. That can't be healthy. I'm feeling this way all of the time. That can't be healthy. And sometimes we start to notice too that as this shifts, we start to be in the box towards other people, and that sometimes is what helps us to notice it. I believe, now this is not shared by the Arbinger Institute, they would actually disagree with this, but I think I'm right. Right? Okay, so, but I think I'm right. I believe that if you're in the box towards everyone in one way or another. I look at it very holistically. I don't think I can say, okay, I'm in the box with you, but I'm not with you. I am with you, and I'm not with you. I think when I'm in the box, it affects every relationship that I have. Now, it may not affect them all as dramatically. Someone may get to be, Ed, you may get to be the target of my wrath today, or whatever, and I may let everyone else go. But when I'm in the box, it affects everything because it affects my whole way of thinking. I am living in a lie. If I'm living and believing a lie, how can I see anything truthfully? Right? So that's where we have some of the things that start to happen then, and again, things that can help us to realize what's going on. We can begin to experience alienation when we're in the boxes, because I am so preoccupied with myself that I start to exclude myself from other people. Okay, when I'm in these boxes and I'm going through these things, I don't care what's going on with you. I don't have any interest in anything else. I'm so preoccupied with myself that's all I want to worry about. And so I even though I may be surrounded by people, I've decided that they're all objects. So I still feel very alone. And then as I feel alone, I begin to pull myself back so that I can wallow in my aloneness some more. You see how these things, they push us further and further in. Another thing is that we begin to provoke other people when we're in the box. Because one of the things that I want to be true, when I'm in any of these boxes, I want to create, and your kids did this a lot, I want to create scenarios where you will respond in the way I think you should to prove that I'm right in how I feel and think. Okay, did you get what I said there? So here's what that means. If I feel like I am, let's say I'm in the better than box, and so I'm right and I'm virtuous and you're wrong. Let's go back to that one real quick. No, not that one. I deserve one more. Okay, so in the better than box, all right? So I view myself, I'm superior, I'm important, I'm virtuous, I'm right. You're inferior, incapable, irrelevant, you're false, you're wrong, and I'm experiencing all these things. So now what I want to do is I want to set up a situation where I can feel like that's true. And so I will provoke you to do that, right? So maybe I've decided that you have a short temper, and you always get angry, and you always blow up. So that's the day that I come home and tell you, let's say it's a Wednesday and maybe your church has a midweek church service or something like that. So I come home as your son and I say, Mom and Dad, I hate God. I don't think He's real. I think I'm gay and you're the worst parents ever. And you go, well, I don't care. You're still going to church. No, I'm not. Yes, you are. No, I'm not. Yes, you are. And we start this argument, and all in my mind I'm going, see, I knew it. I knew it. They don't listen to me. They don't care about me. I've just got to stay true to myself. That would be a better than type of statement. I just got to stay true to myself because I'm right. See how we provoke this? And I've talked to some of you as you're having phone calls with your kids, and usually right around the end of first phase, you may even experience this while you're here, right around the end of first phase or very early in family restoration, your kids will test you to see if you're different. And part of it is because they're still in the box. Right? They're still working their way out of it. They'll have moments where they're out of it, but they're not fully out of it yet. I don't think. Okay, but they're working their way out of it, and maybe they're getting better, and they're out of it some of the time. But they will have a moment where they're going to test you to see if anything is different. So who knows what they're going to throw out. Sometimes it happens early on where they'll say, and you may have seen this in maybe some of the emails that were sent home. Right? I know I had a conversation with somebody just recently, I don't know if it was anybody in the room, where we were talking about an email that they got home, and their email was something along the lines of, where it said, spiritually, how are you doing? And they said, I feel like all of the forced religion that was put on me while I was at home has really made me question things. Okay, now that is a provocative statement, right? That is a statement designed to elicit a response. What do you mean all the forced religion that you had to go through at home? We went to church on Sundays. I'm sorry that we took an hour of your life or whatever, right? But it's there and it's designed. Sometimes parents will ask me, well, how do I respond to that? And I say, don't. Just let it be there. I said, and you'll know it's right that it's a provocative statement because they'll come back and ask you about it again. So, hey, did you get my update? Yeah. What'd you think of it? Oh, it was good. I appreciate you sharing. Wait, what? What do you mean you appreciated me sharing? At home, you're supposed to yell at me about this, right? I mean, that's the kind of thing. So we go through this. Now, of course, we as parents don't do this much to our kids, but we actually do, right? We do these same things. When we're in the box, we provoke other people to make ourselves right. If I have an unreasonable boss, then I start doing my reports, a little bit less the way he wants them or she wants them, and I start turning them in maybe a few minutes later than they're supposed to be in, so that they'll come to me and say, hey, your reports are not up for us. See, I knew you were told me. But I've done it. I've done these things to provoke him, because the more that I do that, the more I feel justified in the things I'm thinking and saying and doing. So it's a lot easier for me to go and talk to one of my coworkers about how unreasonable my boss is if I've provoked them to make something that I view as unreasonable. Now I feel really good about my collusion. Now I might even say, we're getting together to help them. We're going to come up with some ways to help them. When really all it is we're just getting together to talk about what we don't like about them. So then this is where it gets interesting. Listen to this statement. So when others and I betray ourselves towards each other, we cooperate in perpetuating each other's self-betrayal. So here's what's funny, is that as many things as in our homes we didn't agree on with our kids, we actually were working together to keep each other in boxes. Because I wanted to feel justified about the box I was in, and you want to feel justified about the box you're in, and so you're provoking me, and I'm provoking you, and we're isolating, and we're alienating, and we're going back and forth, and every time we go through it, we feel more and more justified, and the one thing that we're doing really well together is keeping each other in boxes and feeling good about it. It's crazy how that works. It's so destructive. But we do it over and over and over again. So we keep doing it. Listen to this. This is an example that it gives us. Okay, betraying myself toward another, I may feel underappreciated and overwhelmed and see the other as unreasonably demanding. So I feel compelled to resist the demands that are made of me. Now the other one betrays their self in response, and they are likely to feel unappreciated and overwhelmed and see me as lazy and unmotivated. And so now this person feels compelled to demand more of me. Did you ever see that in your homes? Right? So I start feeling unappreciated. We're in the other one, right? I start feeling unappreciated. Nobody listens to me. My kids they're not respecting me, not doing this. So I'm going to make some more rules. I'm going to make more demands, and I'm going to have more expectations because you're lazy. And I'm going to get you out of your laziness by telling you to do more and getting angrier. That's the word. And they're over here saying, my parents are so unreasonable, they don't get it, they're so out of touch with reality, they think that I'm supposed to work, 20 hours a day for them as their slave. You ever had your kids say it to you? The only reason you had kids is because you didn't want to mow the yard. And my son started to say something like that to me. I laughed. I'm doing it right. And he was actually halfway joking. He was actually talking about something else. But anyways, and so they start to see us this way because we're in the box. They're in this worse than box. They're in this I deserve better. I deserve parents who would listen to me. Like my friend Johnny, his parents let him do whatever he wants to. He can smoke weed in his house, and you won't even let me smoke it when I'm out of his house, or whatever, right? Okay, so, right, I know, unreasonable. Okay, so you've got this, and now I'm feeling it, so I'm not going to do, you think you're going to get more of me? I'm going to do even less. It makes me matter. So now I'm going to demand more. All right, fine, you're grounded. How long? Till you're 70. Fine. Ground me. I'm going to sit in my room and smoke weed. You can't stop me. Okay, fine. We're going to button up everything on your door. We're going to take your door off, right? That's a good one, right? We're going to take the door off of your room, and that'll show you. All right, you're going to take the door from me. I'm going to start spending an hour in the bathroom. Now what? Oh, we're going to take the door off. Wait, that doesn't work. Okay, so, we keep going, and we're going, and we, love it. We hate it. We're there. We feel so justified. And we're working really, really well together. You remember in the Old Testament, Tower of Babel, Tower of Babel, however you heard it pronounced? Right? Do you remember what God said when he looked down? He says, we got to go down there and do something. Because when these people work together, they can accomplish anything. And that wasn't a compliment. That God wasn't saying they're doing so well. It's saying when they work together. So here's what's scary. When we're in mutual self-betrayal, we are working together to accomplish something that is so incredibly destructive we don't even realize it. Until finally there was a moment, right? There was a moment when you said, we can't do this anymore. This just isn't working. I'm going to kill you. I'm literally going to kill you. So we made a change. But really, so far, all we've done is we've just changed geography. We're just starting to say, okay, but now. And I think as I've talked with some of you on the phone, a couple of you are asking, now when we go to conference, we're really going to get, how do we do this, right? So here it is. Are you ready? Here we go. Okay, so here's how we go. This is where it gets exciting. Got to jump over. Oh, okay, so here we go. First we got to talk about false change. This is what we do wrong. First we got about how we do it wrong. Because some of us, we read the book and we had some realizations, or we've talked about these things before, and we've had some realizations. We go, okay, I know how I'm going to change this. I'm going to try harder. You ever had that? We've all done that, right? Have you ever made a deal with God? Like, I'm going to try harder, God, if you'll just, whatever, if you'll just make my kid listen today. I promise I'll never scream again, or whatever. Maybe that wasn't yours, okay. But, we make it, and we think, I'm just going to try. I can will myself out of this. Our kids believe this big time. I can will myself out of this. Because believe it or not, your kids don't want to be doing the things that they were doing. They just didn't know how to get out. And it was easier to say they wanted to than not. Have yet to meet a kid who will ever honestly tell me, when I was 12 years old, I thought, you know what I really want to do is when I'm 15 or 16, I want to have such an estranged parent relationship with my parents that they send me to a boarding school. How do I go about doing that? I've yet to meet that kid. I've yet to meet the kid that says, when I'm 17, what I really want to have is this story about how I was a heroin addict. My parents had to have this intervention. I've yet to meet that kid. I've yet to meet the kid who says, when they're 13 or 14, what I really want to do is have slept with 5 guys by the time I graduate high school. I've yet to meet that kid. Okay, we don't meet kids who have these kinds of problems. We don't meet kids who when they're 10 or 11 or 12 years old say, what I really want to do is isolate myself from the world and not really have any friends or contact with it. I just want to live through this virtual world. I haven't met that kid. Something happened along the way. They just didn't know how to get out, so it was easier to go in. It's like going down a hill. It's always easier than coming back up. It was just easier to go further in, hoping something would change. Okay, our kids have so much hope. It's completely false hope because they think if they just keep going, something will happen. Okay, so false change. I cannot change myself just by trying harder. Because here's the reality is, our best thinking got us in the box. We were doing our best, and we got in the box. So I can't, and so sometimes when I'm going through false change, it's not really my way of being. I'm still resistant, but I'll change my behaviors to something that's more socially acceptable. I have a friend who is a recovering alcoholic, and I was laughing with him. I tell him he's a recovering alcoholic. Now he's a meeting-aholic. Because I say, you used to have alcohol. You were an alcoholic, and now you go to meetings 6 times a week. So you've traded, instead of going out to drink, now you just go to meetings, which is more socially acceptable. The consequences are much less. But I was telling him about 6 months ago, I said, have you really dealt with the real issue? Because the real issue wasn't your alcoholism. That was just the symptom. Have you just traded alcoholism for going to meetings? Because that's much more socially acceptable. Maybe you're somebody who has a temper. Maybe you're angry a lot. And so you think, okay, here's how I'm going to make this false change. Instead of being angry, I'm just going to treat you as if you don't matter. Because that's better. I'm not yelling at you anymore. I'm just pulling away. So now whenever you get angry, whenever you start to feel angry at somebody, you just walk away and ignore them. Because it's more socially acceptable to ignore someone than it is to yell, scream, or lose your temper with them. Maybe I go from, even if I have a temper, that I start learning how to control it. You know, I learn, I count to 10, right? Remember that old parenting technique? Just go count to 10, and it'll magically all go away. Well, not if I'm still resistant. You know, I may choose to do something, I may make a better decision, but my kids are still going to see the resistance because there are two ways to do everything. Resistant and responsive, and people are the most responsive to our way of being. Another thing that we see sometimes in our kids, if I'm in this better than box, I may shift from always talking about how great I am to being very self-deprivating, hoping that you will come along and tell me how great I am. Because that's much more socially acceptable, right? Fishing for a compliment is much better than giving one to yourself. You know, so we hear people, you know, oh, I know, I'm sorry this presentation was so bad. You know, I know it probably didn't mean much to you. Oh, no, Shawn, this was so great, thank you. Right, I can go fish for that compliment, you know, or whatever if I need to. But in each case, okay, so I am changing, I'm doing something different, but I haven't really addressed the core thing. My way of being is still the same. And so what is affecting people, what's having the biggest level of influence is still my way of being. So what we realize is this, that in order for me to change, this is critical, in order for me to change, the change has to happen from something outside of myself. My best thinking got me where I am. Your best thinking got you in the box that you're in, or the boxes that you're in. So to change requires something outside of ourselves. So I believe it's two things. Arbinger only gets to identify one, but I get to identify two. Okay, that same spirit that was prompting us way back at the beginning of this whole mess is that same spirit that will allow us to see things differently.